here's Brody Brazil.
Well, believe it or not, the Major League Baseball season is already here. Pitchers and catchers are reporting, so are position players, and they're noticing something. The jerseys this year are a little bit different. Now, they're being made by Fanatics. That's not anything new, but it seems that Fanatics is trying out a new design, a new chassis, as you'll hear and see, and that players are not really favoring it in their first couple go-arounds with the jerseys. Let me first start with this. A news release today, February 13th, from Major League Baseball. It talks about the Nike and Fanatics relationship and what they're exactly doing here. Major League Baseball and Nike today announced additional details about the new on-field Nike Vapor Premier uniforms and retail options for fans. Beginning in spring training, all jerseys worn by players this season will be designed on the new Nike Vapor Premier chassis. That's what they're calling the fit of the jersey, a chassis. MLB and Nike also announced the 9 clubs launching new Nike MLB City Connect jerseys this season. I'll get to those 9 teams, by the way, in just a second, but they kind of tout the new jersey here as being so much better, breathable, lightweight, high-performance fabric, made from at least 90% recycled polyester yarns, provides 25% more stretch, and allows the jersey to dry 28% faster. All of those things are great, right? For players, you want more modern amenities. You want technology to, like equipment, help players on the field. And they've already tested this out back in the 2023 All-Star Game. They had them on the players. They probably got some feedback there. And now they're unveiling these new jerseys, the new chassis for the 2024 season. And there are some quotes given here. Here's what Nolan Arenado said of the St. Louis Cardinals. Quote, "The Nike Vapor Premier jersey is soft, light, and comfortable. It's almost like wearing my favorite shirt out on the field. And so easy to move around in," end quote. Here's Adley Rutschman of the Baltimore Orioles. Quote, the jerseys this season are much more breathable, with vents on the numbers and better airflow all around. It's really going to make a difference during those hot summer games when I'm in full gear," end quote. And there's one more here from Ronald Acuna Jr. of Atlanta. Quote, "These new uniforms fit better and feel lighter. I play fast and want to wear something that won't pull me or that won't pull when I'm running. Feeling free in the jersey is the best feeling in the world," end quote. So there you go. This 2024 season, the new Nike Vapor Premier chassis. It's part of all MLB uniforms, home, road, alternate, and City Connect. By the way, the 9 teams this season getting City Connect jerseys are Cleveland, Detroit, the Dodgers, Minnesota, the Mets, the Phillies, the Cardinals, the Rays, and the Blue Jays. Those will all be announced and unveiled between opening day and All-Star Week. So in the first half of the season, sequentially, you're going to get the design reveals that they've been working on. You're probably familiar with the City Connect series. Anyway, but let me make one more point here before I get to the criticism of the actual new jerseys. All you've seen and heard so far is MLB's side of it. I'll get to the deeper details in a second. So there's 3 levels of jerseys that they're going to come out with Fanatics and Nike. Number 1 is the Nike Vapor Premier Elite jersey. This is the authentic one, the ones players wear on the field. You'd have to imagine that's by far the most costly. Then there's the Nike Vapor Premier Limited jersey, which is inspired by the on-field jersey, but there's a lot of, there is an embroidered swoosh, but there's a heat-applied twill logos and a heat-applied jock tag and a heat-applied some sublimated twill player name and number, right? So it's not all the same stitching and textures and feel. It's constructed a little bit differently. And then there's the Nike Vapor Premier Game jersey, which is a replica player jersey. This one sounds more like a jersey than anything else. Silicone printed heat transfer word mark, Nike swoosh, silhouetted batter, screen printed back player name and number, and a heat applied jock tag and back neck label. Anyway, you kind of get the idea here that there's now 3 tiers. Fanatics is doing this with the Nike name on it. But the response, initially, like I said, players showing up for spring training and putting these jerseys on, it's not been good. To a large degree, reported here on social media. Jeff Jones covers the Cardinals. I imagine he's down there in Florida to see this firsthand. This is what the back of the white jerseys look like with the new template, he says on Twitter. Players are pretty unhappy. Miles Michaelis says they also don't fit right. Pants are no longer as customized, and the fabric is a very different consistency. They look cheap, another player said. Now, in all fairness, when you change something, there's going to be critics. People will notice the change. It won't feel right. You might get used to it. I do want to point that out. But if there's already this type of backlash into something that players supposedly had some opinion on, they had some input on, they had part of the decision-making process, that's not a good thing here right out of the gate. Some details in the backstory that you actually need to know. Maybe I should have started with this, but in 2020, Nike and MLB started out a 10-year deal for on-field uniforms. That was after a long time where Majestic did the jerseys and maybe buying into the Nike ecosystem and their expertise and their ability to, make top quality sporting gear over many decades. Maybe that was a big factor in MLB agreeing to this deal with Nike. Well, also in 2020, Nike then licensed their production to Fanatics, which I'll get into in a second. They're not necessarily known for quality control or even overall quality of the product or the manufacturing process. It just gets you into a really interesting and unique situation if you're Nike. You have one of the top world brands. You're well known for quality and all the different shoes and apparel that you've made over decades. Like the Nike swoosh is often imitated, rarely ever duplicated. And so Nike's basically slapping their logo onto Fanatics products. And maybe some of this will get back to Nike, but that's an interesting move by Nike to put all their trust in Fanatics to start making jerseys and keeping the Nike logo on it. I'll be very honest with you. I got a 2020 MLB jersey, an official on-field one, from Fanatics. I wasn't sure why it was being sent to me from Fanatics. Then I found out they were already making in 2020 the jerseys with the Nike logo on it. People thought they were made by Nike. No, in fact, even a couple years ago, made by Fanatics with the Nike logo just slapped on at the end. Fanatics, by the way, is also taking over NHL player jerseys. That's right, in hockey, they'll make their official debut in the 2024-25 season, but they've been at this transition for a couple years now in the NHL, taking over jersey manufacturing, and now they've been essentially doing the same thing in Major League Baseball, taking over all of that, in addition to shirts, hats, hoodies, all the other merchandise items that fans buy. But yeah, MLB Players now reporting to spring training, they've started to notice some of the changes and differences and things that they're really not fond of as they put on these jerseys for the first time. Fuzzy from here on YouTube pointed this out, the 2023 versus 24 jerseys. Not just maybe the quality or the materials or the composition, but even look at the names on the backs of the jerseys, how they used to have kind of a typical arch higher up on the shoulders. Now they're more like on the back and almost in a circular fashion around the number. It just has a look that we're not used to. And I say that meaning that it's not a good look. And that's why we're not used to it, because typically teams have a lot of control over their jerseys and how they look and what's traditional and what's expected. That's not an expected look. And as Fuzzy points out here, imagine if Jared Saltalamacchia was still playing. I mean, that's how they used to have to do his name, but you don't really need to do that same curve on the back versus the shoulder for all players' names. This is Bobby Mullins, who on Twitter points out last year's versus this year's replica jersey offerings from the fine folks at MLB, Nike, and Fanatics. Last year's is on the left versus this year's on the right. Gilbert versus Kirby. I have a lot to say, so bear with me here. Let's just rip off the Band-Aid right away with this year's new jersey offerings. And there's a whole thread here, but I'll just show you the photo. I mean, you can clearly see there are differences, but even from just one photo here, a phone photo it appears to be, there's a lot more quality and craftsmanship in last year's Gilbert jersey than there is in this year's Kirby jersey. The dimensions of things, the scale of the name versus the number, the positioning of things. I imagine if you got up real close and felt the fabrics and the materials, it would feel like the Kirby one was done for a lot less of a cost, and maybe that has not been applied to the actual price tag on it. So anyway, this is something to definitely keep an eye on. And you understand Major League Baseball players, they only expect the finest of things in their equipment, in their travel, in their conditioning, in all of their approaches. They will not stand for wearing a jersey that is not up to their standards. So in a way, if this really is a problem right now and the players are really barking about it, expect it to be resolved very quickly. Like before fans can even have a say at the start of this regular season, expect that the players will get their way on this and they will get the improvements on their jerseys. Obviously, I mentioned those 3 tiers. We'll see if the improvements make their way down to the other 2 tiers and the ones that fans might buy. You made it here to the end of the video. You know I appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. That'll greatly help me and the channel. And also, if you're new here, if you've never seen me before, I'm glad you found me. Make sure you subscribe so I can definitely see you back here next time.